Hi there, this is Mike, and welcome to part 2 of how to customize any WordPress theme. As we worked in the first video, we altered one rule on the style sheet to make this background go from gray to white, and then I introduced to you the header.php file, which generates all of this with our nice little notes, hello and goodbye, from the file. And then down in the footer, we did the same thing with footer.php just to show you what's being generated from those files. So what we're going to do now is go back to our design. This is the design that we need to make this WordPress site resemble. And first thing I'm going to do is, I know that I can leave the navigation and the body content here as is, and I can control those with CSS. But what I'm going to need is to isolate the images out of the design and then incorporate those into the site, and then work the style sheet and the header.php and the footer.php to make this precisely identical to our design. So first thing, I'm going to turn off everything except for the elements I want to isolate. Here we have the logo. I'm in Photoshop, holding down Control and clicking the icon. I get a nice little selection around that. I'm going to now go to Image, Image, Crop, and I'm going to save for the web. I want to maintain the transparency, so I don't want to save it as a JPEG. I want to save this as a ping24, and that looks good, and I will save. Now this is the folder that we have our WordPress demo in, and just as a convention, what I like to do is certain images that I know are not theme specific, like my logo or my primary background image, things that I know that even if I switch out the theme, I'm going to want certain images like my logo in the next theme. So I tend to put those here at the root level. This is a completely stylistic choice, but it helps keep me organized. I create a new folder. I name it the IMG folder. It lives along with the 3 primary folders of WordPress: WP Admin, Content, and Includes. And I'll just put the main images that I need here, and I just have very quick top-level access to them. And this is my logo, so I'm just going to name that logo.png. Actually, PNG's in there, so logo.png, there we go. Save. Now I'm going to go to my history and just back up to the original design. And I'm going to do the same thing with this background image. I'm going to turn off every layer that I don't need, holding down Control or Command on a Mac. I click the thumbnail, I get a selection around just that image that I'm trying to get. And I'm going to go to Image, Crop, and I'm going to go to File, Save for Web. Now since there's no transparency here, I can save it as a JPEG, which is a much smaller format if you have decent compression on it. And this looks good. Saving it to that same IMG file here in my WAMP www WordPress demo folder. And I'm going to save this as background.jpg. Save. And that's all we need Photoshop for, just pulling the images out of the design and then maybe referring back to the original, which we have here. So if I now go back over to Dreamweaver, you won't notice any major differences in the files you have here in your site until you refresh. There's my IMG folder, there's my logo and my background ready to be used. So first thing I want to do, let's put that background into the background. Using Firebug, I can right-click and inspect the element. I have to click on the element that I'm trying to inspect. So here I'm clicking on this background and I'm going to inspect it, and that is this body class. This is the same rule that we turned white in the previous lesson. So I want to go right here to style.css line 323 and just edit that to include my new background image. Style.css line, what was that line again? 323. Body background is white, that is correct, but now we want to drop in our background image, and we do that using the URL opening and closing parentheses, and then we put the path to the image inside the parentheses. What you have to remember is that the style.css is relative to itself, so from here we have to actually map out the paths to get out of WP Content Themes 2011. We have to navigate up these folders and then go into the IMG folder. So we want to go up from style.css. We want to go up one level to get into the themes folder, up 2 levels to get into the WP content, up 3 levels to get into the main root, and then down into image and then the name of our background image. So to navigate up a folder level, we use the syntax ... slash. That's up one level of the folders. So I want to go up 3. So ... slash ... slash ... slash. Now I'm up 3 levels and I want to go into the IMG folder. And once I'm in there, I want to grab the background.jpeg file. I can now save that. And if I refresh my site, I now have the background image here in my site. You'll notice that it is repeating, which I don't think I want. I just want that one image right at the top, just like as shown in our design here. So to do that, I just have to alter this CSS rule a little, and I will add the property to say no-repeat. This will keep it from repeating vertically, or horizontally for that matter. And refresh, and now we just have the one background image. But what I'd really like is for this background image to stay still while the content scrolls over it. To do that, I'm just going to add one more property here in this line 323 of the style.css file, and I'm going to make this background image fixed. Save. Refresh. And now the content scrolls over the one background image, which is just what we're looking for. Okay, next I would like to get rid of this white background which is behind the entire page of content here. To do that, I'm going to click on the white with my right click, inspect the element with firebug, and it looks like it's this div ID primary. Is that it? Or is it div ID main? Or is it div ID page? Ah, page. By using firebug to hover over each piece, you can see firebug will highlight what I'm hovering over. And div ID primary was this section down here, but not the entire site. So page has the background color of white. And if I just turn that on and off here, I can see I can make it completely transparent. So what I'm looking for is style.css line 326. Let's go back over to Dreamweaver, and all I have to do is really line 326 right here. All I have to do is delete that. Save. Refresh. And now my website is, the elements are transparently laid on top of the background. Okay, a good start. But what I want to do next is check my design. I want the main content to be semi-transparent white and the nav bar to be semi-transparent white. They will also both have slightly rounded corners and a slight drop shadow. So let's right-click on the nav bar, inspect the element with firebug, and it appears to be this div ID access role, and here's the rule for access. If I turn that on and off, I can see that's definitely where the black is coming from. It already has a nice box shadow there, which I like and I'm going to keep. And I want to make this background go from this linear gradient to transparent, semi-opaque white, semi-transparent. So the line I'm looking for is here, line 555. Come back over to style.css. Scroll down to access, line 555. Here it is. And it has several gradients which are targeting different browsers because this is a CSS3 property and they have to be backwards compatible. But we don't need any of those. I'm going to grab all of these background properties that I don't need and I'm going to delete them. And I'm going to add the background property for RGBA, which is red, blue, green, alpha, and the alpha is the transparency channel. Open and close parentheses and end it with a semicolon, and I want a value of 255 for red, 255 for green, 255 for blue. And now the alpha channel that I'm going to set, I want it to be semi-opaque, and alpha goes from 0, which is transparent, to 1, which is completely opaque, and I want to set this to about 0.7. And this should give me my nice transparent white. Refresh, and now look at that, we have a nice transparent white background here on the nav. We have, however, lost the color of the text in the nav bar is white, so we've lost that, so we have to change that to a black. Come over to Dreamweaver, and I just happen to know it's slightly down here. What we're looking for is the anchor inside that nav bar, and here it is. It's set to this EEE, which is just shy of white, and I'm going to set that to 000 for black. Save it, and it comes back. There we go. Next thing I want to do is give this square slightly rounded corners, so I'll head back to that access rule. Access. Not sure why they named their navigation bar access, but that's the ID they chose. And I'm going to give this a border-radius of, let's say, 10 pixels, and save it. There we go. We have nice rounded corners on our nav bar. Now I know that I want basically that same presentation of semi-opaque round corners with a drop shadow on the main content here, which if I inspect the element, it looks like I am looking to isolate this div ID primary. And the primary rule is on style.css line 85. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my access rule, grab the rule for the semi-transparent white, the border radius, and now the box shadow that was already there. I'm going to hit Control C to copy, and now I'm going to zip on up to line 85. Here's line 85. There's that primary rule. And paste with Control V my background, my border radius, and that box shadow. Save the file. Refresh. And there we go. Now we have our transparent white round corners, and drop shadow on both our nav and the body of our site. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to get rid of this line that seems to be left over from some other element. I will inspect it. Header branding, and it looks like border top. It's right there. Style.css line 526. Head on down to line 526. Border top, and I'm just going to delete it. Save, reload. The line is now gone. Wonderful. I also want to change the background of this footer. I don't need this sort of flat gray. It doesn't match the design. I think I'll just remove it entirely. So I right click using Firebug. It looks like it's this div site generator. And if I look at the rule, here's that background, and if I turn that on and off, that's the rule I'm looking for. Style line 2273. Let's head on down to Style CSS line 2273. Background. F9, F9, F9. Delete that, save it, refresh, and it's gone. And hopefully you can see it on the screen. It also left a very small little border on the top. And I can even see that rule without having to go anywhere. It's right here, border top 1 pixel solid. If I can turn that on and off, that's the line I want. Still at line 2273. Here's that top border. Delete that. Refresh, and it is gone. So we're almost there. Our site is looking very close to our Photoshop design. What we need to do is get our logo in this area. Replace this image entirely and remove the site title and site description. We also have a search bar over here. As noted from a previous video, this is being defined in header.php. So let's head on over to header.php. And what I want to do is just track this down a little. If I click here, open inspect element with Firebug, this appears to be the site title. It lives inside of an H group. The entire element is header ID branding. Underneath it we have the site description. That's another H2. And then underneath that we have an anchor containing that image. And it looks like I can pretty much delete. Here's our form. And then here's our nav bar. I want to leave the nav bar alone. And the nav bar is living inside the header. So all of this other stuff inside the header I can remove. I just want to be careful to leave the navigation. So it looks like I can get rid of this H group and this anchor with the image in it, as well as this form. So if I come over to header.php, here's the larger header element that's right there, where everybody lives in, and here's that beginning of that H group. Then we have some PHP, which is generating the site title. Here's where it's generating the site description. And then it looks like all this is generating the header image. And I want to say this theme has a random setting. It can choose from multiple images, and this is the code that's going to generate all of those random images. Here it's going to place it inside of an image tag. Here it looks like our search bar, only search, search form, yep. And here's where our nav starts. So I want to grab everything, leave the nav alone, and grab all of this that's generating the image, grab the site description, grab the site title, and grab the top of that H group, just leaving the larger element here, the header. And I can delete that, and that'll completely remove this from the structure of the page. If I now save it, refresh the page, what I'm expecting is my nav will remain, the WordPress and the description and the image and the search bar will have been removed, which is what we get. Now what I want to do to match my file here, my design, is put this logo in the header above the navigation. I can do that with a simple image tag, img. Next comes the source of the image, src for source, equals, then I open close quotes and close the tag. Unlike the style.css, this is relative to the root of the site. So this is relative to the top level of the site, and from here we don't have to navigate up those folders. We just have to go into the image folder and grab logo.ping. So I'll come back here. I am inside the header, above the navigation. So I'm simply going to type in the path relative to the root. I'm going to go into the img folder, and I'm going to grab logo.png. Save it, come back over here, refresh, and there's my logo. Now it is an element in the header. If I look at the design, the logo should only be taking about just shy of 50% of the total width, and for some reason here it's taking up the entire width. So why don't I use firebug, inspect element with firebug. Here's the image logo, and it appears this theme had built into it branding image rule where it had set the width to 100%. If I turn that off, that's the width of the image as it is. However, this is a responsive theme in that it will shift, and what I'd like to do is have the logo, see here where the navigation and the body are moving with the width of the browser, but if this is not set to a percentage, it will not move along with it. So rather than just deleting that, inspect element, I will set that to not 100%, but let's say 40%. That looks a little small. How about 50%? And that looks pretty close to our design. So now that I've tested it in Firebug, I'm just going to come over to my style.css, and I know that the rule that is generating that width is style.css line 553. So let's go to line 553. Width 100%, branding image. And I'm going to change this 100% to 50. Save the file, refresh, and then there's my website. Completely redesigned, restructured to match my designed layout, and you have just customized your first WordPress theme. Thank you.